All right, welcome. So I was trying to do this as a live, didn't work out. So I'm just going to do a recording and just go from there because you just got to make it work when you got to make it work. So with this video, I wanted to talk about healing at the spiritual level. So I had Anna on earlier in the month and we talked about healing from the body, somatic release, letting things go. I had Jeff on before that. We talked about healing through the mind with breath work and mindfulness practices. And so with this one, I've mentioned before with healing with PTSD, I feel there's three tiers. There's the physical, the mental, and there's also the spirit level. And by spirit level, I don't just mean only connecting with your guides or any sort of religion, but your energetic level. So there's more to us than just our bodies. There's also our energetic level, and that's something that's been shown through quantum physics, actually. Quantum physics says we're all made of up of energy. Indigenous practices, shamans of the old, Thailand, Buddhism, all sorts of different philosophies. I guess you could call them religions to some extent for some of them, all believe that we're more than just our bodies, we're more than just our minds. There was even a test done, it's a scientific test back in the early 1900s. It's been disputed by some people agree with it, but there was a scientist who measured a person's weight before they died and after they died. And he found that they were 21.1 grams lighter. And so his thesis or his thought process is that's the soul leaving the body. Others who counteract that say that's just breath leaving the lungs. That might be our body fluids leaving the body, the waste. Sometimes people, you know, let things go after they die. So, how true you want to take that, I'll leave that up to you. I personally, from my own point of view and from what I've seen, there is more to us than just our bodies, more to us than just our minds. We do have a soul, whether it's an energetic part of us or something more sustainable. I'll leave that for you. But I do think there is a spirit level that we need to look at. And when I say spirit, I encompass all of that. So before I can even really talk about healing on this way, I kind of have to get into my own story a little bit. So I was an Army veteran. I served 8 years in. Did three deployments. I think I did the math for the 8 years that I was in. I was maybe home for three and a half. Most of my deployments were 15 months, 16 months. When I went to Afghanistan, we were one of the last groups that went there that had a longer deployment. And we were supposed to be there, I think, for 12 months. We ended up there for 13. Everybody that came in after us started doing those 9 month cycles. So I spent a lot of time downrange, a lot of time in training, that kind of thing. And I never felt that I had PTSD. I never thought that there was anything, quote unquote, wrong with me. Everything when I would go on missions would happen like ahead of me, behind me, other vehicles, but never directly towards me. So it was never me personally being shot at. I was in some helicopters that were getting shot at while we were flying, but I never got shot. I never had to shoot anybody. I wasn't kicking in doors, but we were getting mortared every night. I remember one time we were doing a joint mission and we had to sleep in the bunkers actually because the sandstorm was too bad. We couldn't stay in our tents. So it was either the be very cramped in a truck, or, sleep in the bunkers and make the best of what we could. So those kind of things happened to me, but I never felt that that was bad enough to warrant considering myself a PTSD. And then when I came back from deployment, I was a different person after my last deployment. My first two went fairly well, I think. I'm sure it was a compounding PTSD. There wasn't just one event that started to mess with me. It was really the last one just kind of started kicking everything into gear. I would get, God, migraines every day, for example. I was angry all the time. I was outbursting. I didn't understand why I was angry, why I was upset. I didn't like loud noises. I couldn't do Fourth of July or New Year's Eve anymore. I couldn't take the noise. And I wouldn't like, like in the movies, you see guys who hear the noise and they're outside like digging holes and going crazy and hitting things. That wasn't me. I would just really go within and then I would just get angry and start blowing up after a while. And so it took me a while to truly realize that there was something wrong. And with that, that's, kind of started my journey slowly. I've talked about it a little bit. I tried talk therapy. I tried, medication. I started self-medicating. The VA gave me some pills. Yeah, they worked for a little bit, but it just kind of numbed me and I wasn't happy with myself with them. So I stopped taking them. And then I started smoking weed all the time. I didn't really drink that heavily then, but it was mainly just smoking weed a lot and then trying to numb the pain in the best way I could. And then later on, I started many years later, probably 5, 6 years later, after getting out, I then went into the Landmark Forum, which was good. And I mentioned this before, it can be helpful. It was kind of group talk therapy. It's kind of the best way I can describe it. You're in this room with anywhere from like 60 to 100 people, all having their own stories that they're working on. You're listening to a presenter talk for 3 days. You're having insights, you're learning things, and you're finding your key stories that wasn't due to PTSD necessarily, but they formed who I was as a person. These three key situations that happened to me when I was younger that then created who I am as an adult. So it was a good start, and I don't want to discount that. So talk therapy, I think, does have its place. Mindfulness practices have its place. Body work definitely has its place. But for me personally, it wasn't until I found shamanism that changes really happened. And with that, it was connecting with my guides. And by guides, so the first thing I did was connect with a power animal. And so a power animal is a representation of an animal that is there to give you guidance, there to teach you things, show you what you could be doing, what you should be doing. I don't like using the word should, but helping you realize a different way of doing things and giving you different healings. And they can guide you in journeys on how to find healing based upon the intention of your journey. And a journey, when I say journey, it's like a meditated state. And so with the shamanic way of journeying, you'll have a rattle or you have a drums, you might do a drum track, and you listen to it, and it puts you into an altered state of consciousness, kind of like a meditation, but it's a continuous rhythm that's playing. And while it's playing, you're envisioning yourself going into a different realm, and then you start meeting guides, and it seems made up, and to a point, I guess it kind of is, but it's also real. And I say that because there was a lot of times I'd be doing a journey of, show me something to help me with X. And I would go into my journey, I would meet my power animal. Eventually, I learned how to meet my human guides, and they would show me a stone or a plant, things that I have nothing or knowledge about. And then I would sit there after the journey and I would Google it. I would sit there and go, okay, it's a flower, looks like this. Try to find it, looking through Google Images, and then eventually I'd find the flower that I saw or the plant, get the name of it, and then I would do another Google search of, healing properties of this plant. And then everything that it supposedly can work on for a person was exactly what I was looking for with my intention. So that's why I say it's real. But I also say it's made up because it's your mind interpreting this connection with the altered state, this ultra reality, and putting it into a way that you can understand it. And so when you work with your spirit guides, you work with your power animal, you go through different journeys that you can do that will help you heal. And part of that could also be working with the elements. So, say, for example, you were like me, very closed off with your emotions, not wanting to express yourself fully, not wanting to be able to open up, work out of your heart center, and be able to express yourself fully, I started working with the water element. And water is it is designed for that. It is constantly moving. It's the emotional side of you. It's working through that, being able to shift and flow and grow. Excuse me. And working with the element help open up those emotions. For example, I had a lot of anger. So I would work with the fire, kind of burn out that anger, let it go, burn it away. If you're not grounded enough, or if you're too grounded, you might want to work with the earth. And so with the earth, you could do a ceremony where you're being buried in the earth. You're doing a journey of this, and then you're getting buried and dissolving and becoming part of the earth. And this can help ground you as well, just as much as going outside with your shoes off, but it's a different way of doing it. And so that's what I mean when I talk about the spirit level of things. In doing this, it also helped me build a community, a spiritual community, if you will. So we want to have our physical, everyday people that we see on a constant basis, or, within reason, type of community, people that we can go to for support. But that's what the spirits are there for us as well. They're also our community. They can also guide us. They can be your ancestors. For me, it's part of my lineage now that I can call on other shamans who have been alive for thousands of years and are waiting in the astral plane to help. But it's also my ancestors, part of my own bloodline. It's power animals. It's also guides that might show up, ascended masters. All of these can build a community for you in which you can learn from and which you can grow. So that's why, again, I feel the spirit realm is very important for people. And when you do journey work, and the one other reason I say it's true is because you'll do journey work with people and you'll do group journeys and you all start seeing the same thing or having the same type of experiences. Even if you do it at separate times and you come back and talk about it, you'll find that there's a lot of overlap, a lot of connection, and you just can't discount that. And so it's one reason I think, again, this is very important for people. It can help you work through those emotional wounds, that trauma, the stress, by just getting it out in this altered state, this altered reality, if you will, and just letting it go. You can have spirits come to you and provide healing and teach you different techniques of breath work and stuff that you've never thought of or never taught. Like there's so many people out there, they'll say, "Oh, I never thought I would write a book, but it just came to me and I just had to write it." It's never anything I ever thought about, but I just started writing and it came to me. This is part of spirit guiding this person. Oh, I never thought I would do this or this. And then suddenly the idea just came to me. Sometimes that's spirit guiding us. Sometimes we're being pushed into a path gently, sometimes not so gently. And they're just saying, hey, go look at this, go look at this. And that's for me what happened with shamanism was I never would have, if you'd have told me 10 years ago I'd be doing this, I thought you're crazy. Like, especially coming out of the military, God, it's been almost 15 years now. But coming out of that, never thought that would have happened. And it was one of those things where I was going through my own dark night of the soul. Things were shifting. I was probably not too far off from getting a divorce. And then suddenly shamanism just kept showing up for me. I kept seeing Facebook ads for it. I kept seeing books for it on Amazon, recommended books for shamanism when I had never even looked it up before. And then finally, I just bit the bullet, got a book, started reading it, tried some of the exercises, and then it was trying to find the right teacher. That honestly was the hardest part for me, was finding a teacher that I could connect with enough to feel like they understood what I was going through. And it's important that you find someone that you can trust to work with, even if it's not me, someone else. I have no skin in this game when it comes to that stuff. That's really what it's about. You always want to find someone that you can connect with. And even if you start with someone and you find out towards, I don't know, partway through the training, I'm not really driving anymore. Just opening that door will open the door for more things to come to you, others to come to you. And again, you're building that community. You're going through that resiliency. You're finding that foundation of healing. You're showing the spirit, the spirit realm that you're ready and you want to take the next step. And that next step can take you down many different paths. It doesn't always have to be shamanism. There's so many ways of manipulating energy, working with things. Again, you could just do mindfulness practices. Maybe that's enough. Maybe you just need to do somatic releases. Maybe you need to do all three. And so it's finding that path, finding out what works for you. The other thing with the spirit level is sometimes during trauma, and we get PTSD or we just have trauma, because again, my belief is you have to have trauma to get PTSD, but you don't necessarily have to have PTSD when you have trauma. But you can have things like soul loss, power loss, giving up a part of yourself, or part of yourself goes into hiding because of the trauma. And so working at that spirit level, bringing back those soul parts helps make you whole. And I'll do another video on that later in the future with more detail, but it's important to think about. A lot of times you might be an anxious person for no reason to be anxious, and it could be something that happened to you in a past life. Could be something that happened to you when you were two or three that you don't remember. There is a thing called parts work as well, which is very similar to soul retrieval work. But with parts work, it's part of like your inner child that just goes into hiding. It doesn't necessarily leave you. With soul loss, that part is gone. And so there's a little bit of a delineation between the two, but the process of getting them back is kind of similar. It's working with that part, reconnecting with that part, and integrating that part so that you're whole. So again, going back to the you might have anxiety part and not realize it's because you've lost a piece of yourself. And the same thing happens during trauma. You're in a firefight, you're seeing bodies and you're a firefighter, and you have to close off at that moment when stuff like that happens to you, you have to close that off so that you can continue forward. Right or wrong, it's just what it is. It's a protection mechanism so that you can continue and so that you can survive and thrive. The problem is when you don't go back to collect those parts, you're no longer thriving, you're just trying to survive. And that's a very big distinction for a lot of people. It's especially with PTSD, you get stuck in this spiral. You're stuck in this circle where it's like you just can't find your way out of. You're just going over and over. You're trying the same thing over and over. And that's usually when people come to me. And that's what I had to go through myself was you're just doing the same thing over and over. Nothing's working. You're self-medicating. You're taking the pills. You quit drinking, and then something happens to trigger you again, and you start drinking again, and then you have to are taking drugs, and then you have to go through the whole process to get clean again, and you're constantly fighting and constantly going against yourself. And what you really need is to do the actual work and get the clearing, because all you want to do at that moment is be numb, not remember, not think about it, and just survive. But surviving just isn't enough if you think about it. Like you can survive all day, but is that really the life you want to live? Is that really what you want out of your life? And if it is, that's fine. If you can honestly look deep within inside yourself and say, you know what? I'm good. This is the way my life is right now, and I've accepted it, and I'm no longer going to try to make things better. That's your choice. That's your journey. No one can force you otherwise, and don't ever let them try to. But if you really take a look at yourself, dig deep, talk to yourself, ask yourself truthfully and honestly, are you happy? Is this what you want? Just think about that. Are you happy trying to quit drinking and drugs every couple months? Are you happy not being able to leave the house when there's loud noises? Not being able to be with your family and friends? Are you happy just sitting around all day hiding, hiding from the world, not being able to keep a job, not being able to hold things down, not be able to keep a relationship, not be able to see your kids because your spouse doesn't trust you anymore? Are they afraid to see you? Are you happy with that? Is that the life that you truly want to live? I know for me, it wasn't, and for a while I thought it was. I thought I had everything under control. It's just a couple outbursts. I'll get through it. I'm just angry right now. I'll get over it. I can stop smoking weed whenever I want. I can stop doing this. I didn't hurt anybody. All I did was yell at them. It's it's not fun for anyone. It's not fun for you, and it's not fun for your family. And if you think about it, you're causing them trauma now. Right? And I'm not trying to make you wrong. I'm really not, but it's something to think about. And that was the turnaround for me was I can't keep raising my kids this way. I can't keep doing this to them. So when I started out trying to work on myself, it wasn't even about me. It was about them. They were my catalyst to keep moving. I didn't want to lose my wife and kids. What do I need to do to fix this? That's the way I started with it. And then once I got into it, it was like, oh, no, this is better. I want this for me. I need to work on myself. I need to fix this for myself. And fixing it for me will in turn fix things for everybody. But it starts with me. Because if you don't work on yourself, nothing else you do matters. So that's one thing I want you to take away from this. You need to work on yourself, whatever that looks like for you, whatever it looks like. You don't need to stress about, oh, Jeremy said this, I need to go work with him. No, you can if you want to, but I might not be the right person for you. You might not like the way I work. You might need something more feminine, for example, who talks a certain way, or, maybe it's you're more attracted to someone who wants to work with crystals and do this and that. That's fine, but figure it out for yourself. Figure out the type of person that you want to have help you and start to think about that person, and they will show up. And in fact, you might already know who they are, but you really need to think about that. You got to find your community. There's three main things with PTSD. It's the hyper vigilance, constantly being aware, looking around. There's the intrusive thoughts, constantly remembering things or thinking badly of yourself. And then there's the relationships. And for me, relationships, that's the foundation for fixing PTSD. Hypervigilance and the intrusive thoughts, they go away, but that foundation of relationships will always be there, and that's going to turn into your community. And so you really want to look at that. Just check my notes real quick. So just getting back into the whole concept of spirit, I said there's many names for this. Some people will call it God, so maybe Christianity is what you need when it comes to the spirit side of things. That's fine. I don't knock religion of any kind. That's up to you. If you want to Jewish, Muslim, whatever. There's actually Catholic priests out there that I know of who practice shamanism and use shamanism for themselves and for their flock or their practice not practitioners, but the people that come in and worship at their church with them. I don't go to church, so I don't have the name off the top of my head. And they'll use shamanism. They'll use shamanism for healing and other things. And I was actually just at a memorial for a friend of ours that passed away. She had cancer for over a year. She was fighting it for a while. And we were at the memorial inside the church, and she's Catholic. And the priest started opening sacred, the different directions and stuff, but he was doing it differently than I was taught how to do it from the indigenous side. But it was almost the same. Like he was calling in the north, the east, the south, the west, up, the down. He was calling in the directions. He was bringing the ceremony, kind of like what we do in the shamanic realm, opening up the directions to call in the spirits to help everyone there, to call in to help guide the our friend that died, her spirit, so that she can move on and go up to heaven. He was doing all of that. And I could feel the energy flowing within this church the same way I do at a shamanic ceremony that I would be doing outside or someone I know would be hosting. It was almost the same. And so their spirit is there. Spirit is also there. It's just a different way of accessing it. One thing I was told when I was living in Egypt for a couple months working at a scuba diving shop, and I was hanging out with some of the locals. And the one guy, he basically said, he's like, there's Buddhism, there's Jewish, there's Muslim, there's Christianity, there's all these different religions, but there's only one God. It's how you get there that matters. And so for me, instead of saying God, I say spirit because that encompasses everything and it doesn't hold me to one specific type of religion. Because I believe there's good parts from all religions, and just like there's bad parts from all religion. That's my personal viewpoint. But I do believe there's a greater consciousness of some sort, and we call it spirit. And with that, we connect with that spirit through our energy field. Some people call this the aura. You know, we all have, in many different religions or teachings, we all have chakras. And these chakras are all considered to do basically the same thing. And you have all these different groups all around the world talking about the same thing. They didn't have any connection with each other. So there's got to be something there, right? There's got to be something with energy, with the chakras, with the life force. Some call it chi. Reiki is considered life force energy. Everybody talks about using energy to move things. And that's spirit. That's moving things out. It's clearing our energetic field, clearing these imprints that get left behind of this trauma that happened to us, allowing our energy to help then heal ourselves better. Because that's one thing I'll say is I don't heal anybody when I work on them. What I do is I remove the imprints from you. We clear out your energetic body, your energetic system. We clean out the chakras. We allow your own energy to move more freely. And this helps get rid of things like disease and other issues that people have, depression, anxiety, nightmares. I mean, all sorts of things. And then sometimes, along with soul loss, sometimes other things will attach to us because we have dirty fields, so to speak. They want to feed off of that negative energy that's stuck to us, those imprints. And these can come in many different things. They can be very random. They can be very specific, trying to attach to you. Some can be considered dark. Some can be considered elemental or just random like parasites that kind of get stuck on us. And they feed off of the trauma, basically. A lot of times they'll feed off of that specific trauma and the feelings that come out of it. So maybe you have a trauma when you were a child and now you don't feel worthy of love or you don't trust and these kind of things. They'll come into your field and they'll latch on and they'll just start feeding on you. And that'll make you depressed. That'll make you tired. that'll make your energy levels low, that can give you pain, that can give you illness or stress. And sometimes, if it's there long enough and if it's dark enough, it can lead to intrusive thoughts on its own. And sometimes, people might consider that multiple personalities or where you're starting to hear things. There's, true scientific stuff on that. And there's also the shamanic, energetic version of that. And so you always have to be careful how you go about it and not treat everything the same because sometimes there's genetics involved, but those genetics could be in place because of something that happened to you in a past life and you need to work through. Doesn't mean it's going to go away, but maybe the next time it won't be as bad or the healing will be better. I've done soul retrievals for people with allergies, and their allergies didn't fully go away, but they were more manageable where they didn't need to use medications anymore. So there is something there to that. And so that hopefully I'm making sense with this, but this is what I mean by the spirit level, the energetic level. And when you clear the energetic level, it helps the body start focusing on itself because your own energy now is flowing through your body, bringing back energy to your organs, your limbs, to your body, to your brain, which then helps you feel better, helps you mentally think better. My migraines have been gone for years now. I never got a reason why they were showing up, but they're gone now after a lot of clearing. They just they don't exist anymore. And when you go through this work with PTSD, there are going to be days where you're filled with doubt, like, oh, I'm starting to think of this. But once you do the clearing, you don't forget the past. And that's one thing you always have to remind yourself is these things happen to you. But you get to change now how you react to the way they affected you. So you can't forget things, but you'll find that you won't think about it as often. You won't have these memories anymore. But there still might be something that brings up the memory. So now you have to just have the feelings for the moment. Have your feelings, but don't get stuck in the emotions. You know, Grief, remember it. It's maybe you were in a Humvee and you survived and everybody died. And now it's that anniversary date for when it happened. It's okay. It's okay to be sad that day. It's okay to light a candle in remembrance for them and to feel sad that they're gone. But you don't want to get stuck in the emotion of it because then you'll be depressed, anxious, sad, and it's just going to take over your body again and over your life. And it's hard, and I make it sound like it might be easy. It's not easy. It's just like any other work that you have to do on yourself. It will take work, it will take time. But just know that you can do it and that you're not alone with it. And again, even if it's not working with me and it's finding somebody else that seems right for you, work with them. Try it. If anything else, just try it. You don't know how many people I've had come to me say, I don't believe in anything you do. I don't think it's going to work, but my wife or my husband says I should be here. I say, okay, I don't need you to believe. I just need you to let me do it. And they're like, okay. Then I'll do a session. We'll do some clearing. Next time they come in, I'd say 9 out of 10 times on the very next session. I don't know what you did, but I slept better than ever before. I'm feeling a lot better. Let's keep going. And usually by 4 sessions, they're able to move on enough and they're feeling great. That's how it should be. It should be that simple. And so just think about that and think about what you're doing for yourself and what you could be doing for yourself. Whether it's again starting at the mind level, maybe the spiritual level is just too metaphysical for you. Maybe you just can't get into that realm of possibility. That's fine. Start with somatic breathing, somatic body movement. Start with mindfulness practices. Try that first. Or, if you're not doing it, go back to group therapy and try to figure out from there, figure out the stories that maybe you had, and then go forward. But just know, I mean, there is science involved in it that's catching up actually with the indigenous tribes. They've been saying for years that we're all made of energy, we're all this, we're all that. Quantum physics is now saying, yeah, it's true. We're made up of energy. We're constantly moving. Energy is always shifting. There is multiple realities out there. We just can't see them yet. They are catching up now to what these people have known for thousands of years. But for some reason, we wanted to discount it. We had a great purge in Europe, got rid of all these kind of ideas, and then we tried to come over to the Americas. We try to do more purging. Now they say it's the time for all the information to come out. So again, if you want me to dig a little bit deeper anywhere, let me know. I just really wanted to talk about how healing can come from this. And for me, it's been great. It's truly helped change my life. It's put me on a whole different path once I started working with spirit, once I started working with my power animal, once I found my guides. I think I mentioned it before, maybe not in this group, but at least on the podcast when I'm doing a podcast too. But when my own father died 2 years ago, 2 years in July, it'll be, that was rough. Like seeing him there in the hospital bed on the breathing tubes, knowing that there was nothing left we could do. And then we finally moved him in the hospice and he passed away right when he got there because that's what he wanted. He didn't want to be hooked up to the machines. But through my training, I was able to give him death rights. I was able to help his spirit move on. I was able to help him one more time the way he's always helped me. And now I know I can call on him at any time. He's always there when I need him. And not even in the sense of always, he's just always there. Like I have an altar, ancestor altar for him. I can reach out to him when I need him. I've done different plant medicine ceremonies where he showed up. I've done journeys where he showed up. When I need him, I know he's there and I know he's watching out for us. If I didn't have my training and I was strictly back into the way I used to be with atheist and there is no God, there is no this, I don't know what it would be like for me right now. Because to honestly, for me personally, to think that once you're dead, that's it, and there's nothing else, to me, that's worse than anything else. Knowing that when you pass and you move on, you're on another adventure, another journey. If anything, it makes it easier. I don't know. I don't know another way of saying it, but knowing that you can call on your ancestors, people that you've loved, and bring them back so they can talk to them. And I've done that work with clients. They'll come in, had a loss. I'll help move on their loved one onto the spirit realm, into the ancestral plane so that they can get healing and then teach them how to have conversations with them. And they find out things that they didn't know through this communication, looking for certain documents, looking for certain things that they needed, but they couldn't find. And then they would start to have a conversation and the information is given to them. Now, you could probably pass that off and say, they probably knew about it, just forgot. Maybe, maybe not. I like to think not. They didn't know any of it until it happened. I've seen a lot of things happen in this work that is unexplainable. And you just have to let it be unexplained and just realize that it's true. So, again, this is my TED Talk for spiritual healing and why it's important. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. If you need me to clarify anything or expand on something, let me know. It's kind of a different vibe now that I'm not actually talking to anyone, just talking to myself. So I'll try to do another live in the future. That way we get a little bit more interaction. But Facebook was just messing with me today. So this is what you get. And hopefully it's worthwhile and you enjoyed it. And let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer them where I can, or I'll make another video and do a live Q&A or something. So again, it doesn't have to be shamanism to connect to spirit. This is what worked for me, and I want that to be clear. These are the practices that I use and that I want to share, but it doesn't have to be for you if it's just not for you at this moment. But I encourage you to at least do some self-reflection, see if you're truly happy with your life situation the way it is, and figure out what you can do to change it. What? Because the only way it's going to change is if you make the change yourself. Nobody can do it for you. So just think about it. What do you want to change with your life? Thank you.